was born in November 1936. I'm the only one, only Rugrat. Dad didn't want one. I slipped in there and became the only one. I was born in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and to parents is Lloyd Noble and Margaret Nygren. My dad's name was Donald or Lloyd Donald, and he didn't want a junior, so they changed it to my name is Donald Lloyd, and his was Lloyd Donald. I get the stories from my mom over the years of things that I did. I think one of the funniest ones, I never liked to have clothes on when I was a little kid. In Colorado Springs, there was a railroad track with a walking bridge across it. And they couldn't find me one day. Finally found me on top of this bridge, throwing my clothes over and watching them float down on the railroad tracks. So that was kind of one of the funniest things that my parents told me about. But I don't remember because I was too little. I grew up in Longmont, Colorado. Most of them that I remember graduated from high school there. From a split family, mom and dad separated when I was about 14. I was always wanted to be a hermit. I loved horses. I used to had a couple of my own. Used to break horses, and play the rodeo. Wanted to play the rodeo game, but never did get into that part of it. Got bucked off a horse a couple times, and that hurt, and didn't like the results of that. So my dad said at one time, he said, you can either have a horse or girlfriends. And I took the horses, but the girls followed anyway, so it was kind of hilarious. But the first car I ever owned was a 37 Dodge. Paid $150 for it, and it served me well for about 3 years through my high school, 16 till I got out of high school. My folks, mom and my dad and my stepmom had joined the LDS Church. The missionaries had, when they contacted them, had made a statement that offended me. I didn't even sit in the discussions. So, but later on, Dad and stepmom moved to Denver, and I moved in with them because I graduated from high school and was going to go to school in Denver. And they went to a award party, and the bishop asked me if I would help the Boy Scout program, being I had scouting background. And through the process, snows come, do some studying, and I went to the bishop, asked him a couple questions about Ephesians. It talks about the two sticks. He explained it to me, what it was meant, and I told him I was ready for baptism. That Saturday I was baptized, and never had the missionary discussions. That was in June of '57, and then at that point I had become engaged to a young lady in Kansas, which was a distant romance, which didn't pan out. After I got in the military, I was going to get it out of the way because the draft was breathing down my neck at the time. I went in the Air Force and came home on leave, and she broke up the engagement, which was probably a good thing. From Lackland Air Force Base to Scott Air Force Base, Illinois, for final training. First full station was Las Vegas, Nevada, Nellis Air Force Base. I got to working with dependent youth on base, and as a scout background, the scouting crew found out about it. They sent me to summer camp with the Boy Scouts, and while there, the staff supervisor decided I was asset to there, and went to the base and got me orders to stay up there all summer. And then he liked what I did there and sent me to another Kingman, Arizona, to another camp as a camp coordinator. So I ran that camp for a week of, I don't remember how many boys. And when I got back to base and headed to my duty station, the chaplain wanted to see me. And he asked me, what's the last time I wrote my dad? I told him it's been a while, and he said, yeah, I got a letter from him. You will have a letter on my desk to him this afternoon. And so when the chaplain speaks, you do you do what you're told to. But anyway, then he made arrangements for me to be camp director for the dependent youth up at a camp. I had to, as a 21-year-old, I had to set up the whole camp facilities with the chaplain's help, and he had fixed the staff, and we assigned everybody, and it went well. When they did their inspections, the only thing that I missed on was my age. So the camp went real well, and they were very pleased. Then I got orders to move from there to Iceland. I spent a year in Iceland. Again, got involved with the dependent youth up there, the scout group up there. While working with the scouts, they sent the scout troop over to Germany for a 2-week encampment over there, which I was able to go with. And kind of one side light there. Back then I was limber enough to do a Indian hoop dance using 3 hoops, and so I did the hoop dance at the fireside one night and dressed in the Indian costumes, and it was kind of fun. Did a little touring in Germany at that time. In Iceland, there was probably 3 members of the church. We had an opportunity to go from Keflavik, which is our base station, to Reykjavik, which is the capital, and the embassy member was LDS, and we'd go to his house with his family and have the sacrament, and then that's the only contact we had with the members of the church up there. One sidelight there, we had a young fellow that was one of the aircraft repairmen. His name was Ice. We called him Hardwater. But he shipped out, and after I shipped out, he went to, I think it was to the Philippines, and I went to North Carolina. And on the trip over to Vietnam, I ended up in the Philippines and went to church over there. And when I walked in the door, there was Ice, and that's the worst chewing out I ever got, because his wife was in the United States having a missionary discussions, and here we had a group in Iceland and didn't even let him know we were there. And so he was very upset about that, and proceeded to chew me out for not letting him know. So again, probably a word to the wise is let your light so shine that it helps other people. But I was assigned aircraft radio repairman, but up there they changed my assignment to scoutmaster. I was scoutmaster, and that was my duty to go to the scout hut and have the boys, and we had 40 boys active, most of them dependents. We had a couple Icelandic boys that made the trip to Germany that had never been off the Iceland island, so it was kind of neat. And it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of support. I think I had more clout than some of the majors and colonels up there on the base because the general that was over the base, his son was my senior patrol leader. So if I wanted something, I usually got what I wanted. So then quartermaster, he was a major. His son was one of the patrol leaders. And so it made it pretty handy. All I had to do was ask, and I'd usually get what I wanted. So then I'm from Iceland. Then I went to North Carolina. And at that point, I was still only a deacon and so couldn't do much of anything. But I think the biggest thing is they started asking me to go out with the missionaries, and first house we contacted, the guy threw a chair at me. So I wasn't sure I wanted to do missionary work, but during the course of the time there, I ended up piling up a motorcycle that I had borrowed and spent 40 days in the hospital. I had a concussion, chin was ripped open. Went home, and they ordained me to an elder at that point. And when I came back, they put me in as a district missionary, full time. I was working in the Air Force 40-hour shifts and then doing 40 hours of missionary work afterwards. Met my first wife at that point, was able to confirm her member of the church. When I got discharged from the military, we got married and I brought her back to Colorado with me. We lived on a farm out there for a year. And when our second boy was born, then I adopted the first one from a previous marriage. And moved into town. I became a scoutmaster of the ward there, and at that point, while they were in Greeley, Colorado, I was ordained to 70 by Ezra Taft Benson because I was doing missionary work, and that was the assignment for 70s at that time. And when I became a high priest down the line, I'd spent more time in my church career as a 70 than I had the whole spectrum of things. But anyway, then I was working. Went to work for State Farm Insurance Company as a computer operator with no experience. They taught me how to run the computers. So started out with a old manual card punch and a 407, and take hours to do 3 states of fire company work. I was working for the fire branch of State Farm until they started putting everything on tape, and then in the process they absorbed me into their auto process, and I spent almost 10 years with State Farm Insurance Company. While there, they had different shifts, graveyard, swing, and day shift. Most of the swing guys were on going to college, and I had a GI Bill that I could go, and I was running around most with college professors, and they conned me into going over and applying to start college. And when I walked in, I told him that what I was doing. He said, "What are you interested in?" I said, "Well, I'm not good at English, spelling, and writing, but I work with my hands." So they said, "Okay, industrial arts for you." They called up the head of the industrial arts section, said, "I got a guy here who wants to start school in industrial arts." She sent him over. They sent me over, and I went over there, and they pulled the cards for his classroom for me. And I was in school whether I wanted to or not. GI Bill paid for it, which was nice. I was working from, I got on the swing shift, so I was working from 4:30 to 12:30 at night, and going from school from 7:30 to 3:30 during the days, 5 days a week. So it kept me busy, but not busy enough. We had 2 children in the process of schooling and everything else, and just before I graduated, our youngest boy got ran over and passed away. Just after graduation, we moved to Oberlin, Kansas, where I taught school there because I had a teaching certificate for Colorado. And then I got the teaching certificate for Kansas. And then I got a call from a friend about the job here in Murray as a teacher, and so I applied for that. I ended up getting the job teaching here at Murray High School. I taught here for 3 years. After that, I did some multitasking. I went to work for Harry Maines, who was in the ward here, as he was a bricklayer. I used to hod for him and run his errands, pick up sand and whatever for him, and then got a job with the Utah National Guard as a welder. Put some of my industrial arts background to use, and I worked for them almost 15 years. Injured my back, and they decided it was time to get rid of me. I had 19 years experience with full-time in the National Guard. And they let me go, and after that, my jobs went down the road. I was worked at Gart Brothers, which is now Sports Authority, and then I worked for Brinks Armored Cars as an armed security driver, and left them, went to work for Wackenhut Armed Security. And then in 2004, my wife and I went on a mission to Nashville, Tennessee. Back up a little bit too. My first wife passed away in '92. I lost my part-time job in January. My wife died of cancer in March, and I lost my full-time job in July, and back in '92. And I met Grace in later '92, and we were married in '93. So I've been married to her for almost, we're headed toward our 22 years. While here, they finally made me a high priest. I've been working with the high priest in that. While I was out in Kansas, they had me as a district executive secretary. I was a missionary. I lived in Kansas. I went to church in McCook, Nebraska. And the process of going to school, I ended up, I had my pilot's license, so I did aviation in Kansas plus industrial arts. And out in Murray, I taught the industrial arts metals program, which they don't have any longer. Okay, back to our mission. Nashville, Tennessee, I was over the vehicles. They called the car czar, and got to deal with the missionaries and their accidents and maintenance of their vehicles. We had 48 vehicles we had to keep track of. Our mission covered a small portion of Illinois and part of Kentucky and part of Tennessee. We had plenty of mileage to travel, so it kept us busy. My wife was over referrals. And so we were in the office, and we always enjoyed seeing the new ones come in and hated to see the old ones go. We came back. I went back to work for Wackenhut as an armed security guard, as a supervisor over. I would go around and check on the other officers at different sites and check with the employers that wanted the security and see how things were going, make corrections and stuff like that. Then church-wise, I ended up as in the high priest group leadership for almost 3 years, I think it was. 3 to 5, I'm not sure. Lost track of it. And now wife and I were over the baptismal font for almost 2 years, and now I'm back with the Scouts again with Duty to God Awards. Chairman, I guess you'd call it, trying to get the boys to finish up their Duty to God Award. That takes care of about 78 years. I counted for 46 years of scouting activity, and the 12th part of the Scout Law is the Scouter's Reverend. And the Duty to God Award seems to go along with reverence and the ability to, if you complete it, you have compassion to other people. You have honesty. So it kind of goes together. I know in our last conference here that one of the brethren talked about the duty to God, how important it was for them to get the Duty to God award. It helps them in their everyday life, and it helps them with their process of being ready to go on a mission. Well, I think it goes back to when I was working with the Boy Scouts when I first started. There was a lady in the ward that was teaching that age, the 12-year-old and 13-year-old boys in Sunday school class. And I don't remember how the program went, but I helped to devise a program that would give them points and stuff for behaviors and stuff in the Scout program. And it went over into the Sunday school program too, and she invited me to sit in class because she was having trouble with the boys. Well, at that point, she was teaching the boys and at my level that I could understand. And in dealing with her husband was actually the ward missionary that was working with me, but he never did give me any of the discussions. But anyway, his wife was the one that did most of it, and then he did baptize me, but then 6 months later he was excommunicated. So, but anyway, I think that's where I got most of my beginning with the church, is the fact that the way she conducted herself and the things that she taught the kids, and it was is what I needed. The missionaries weren't teaching on my level that I understood. I know that the gospel is true. I challenged it once back on tithing when I first joined the church, and I think my kids have heard this before, and that I said I can't afford to pay my tithing, and shortly after, when I was out doing missionary work, I got stopped by the police officer, and the ticket that I got was for the same amount that my tithing would have been. And I said, that is kind of a coincidence. That couldn't happen. I said, I can't pay it the next month. And went out to try to start the car one day, and it wouldn't start. The part that I needed to replace to get it to run was the amount of my tithing for the second month. And ever since then, I've tried to pay my tithing. But I know the Lord had a meaning for it, and I feel that's why it was. Is that, He's here to help us. But when we get defiant or say He has subtle ways of straightening us out. But I know the gospel's true, and I love my Heavenly Father for that reason. It gives me an idea that I can, maybe, if I am worthy, to go back to see my Heavenly Father.